and excessive zeal. To avert all possibility of their arising, the meditator must have studied such things sufficiently and have adequate sense control before beginning the practice. Moreover, he should not be concerned about the future. Now to the next pair of obstacles: 3. Expectation, satisfaction, and craving with regard to the out-breath. 4. Expectation, satisfaction, and craving with regard to the in-breath. These two are equally harmful to concentration. Anxious expectation and waiting for the out or in-breath springs from fear that the breathing will disappear. The meditator fears that the disappearance of the breathing will suspend his practice and that he will not achieve the desired results. These obstacles are particularly likely to arise in a person who is strongly attached to his practice. They are seldom met by people who practice wisely and in accordance with the practical advice they have received. They come when there is a feeling of satisfaction on account of the easy flowing of the out or in-breath, or through overenthusiasm. This feeling is powerful enough to distract the mind. It renders the breathing so gross that to calm it down becomes difficult. It makes the mind continually tense, and so is reckoned an obstacle. Then from the feeling of satisfaction springs craving. The meditator is strongly attracted by in or out breaths. As a result, both the mind and the breathing become rough and can be calmed down only with difficulty. So this second pair of obstacles is harmful to concentration in the same way as the first. The third pair is 5. Forgetting in-breath owing to domination by out-breath. 6. Forgetting out-breath owing to domination by in-breath. Both of these faults are harmful to concentration. To be dominated by a breath is to be excessively interested in it. This happens if either the out-breath or the in-breath has some particular attraction that its counterpart lacks.
As may be the case if the organ of breathing is not functioning well. For instance, the out-breath may proceed more comfortably than the in-breath, or vice versa. In either case it is an obstacle. To put this another way: 1. Something may attract the meditator to either the in or out-breath and make his attention one-sided. A beginner is very apt to divert his whole attention for a long time towards this unfamiliar phenomenon. 2. The organ at which mindfulness is established may hinder the smooth passage of either in or out breath, so that the meditator fails to fix his mind at the single point of contact throughout either part of the breathing cycle. 7. Distraction by out-breath while watching the sign. 8. Distraction by sign while watching out-breath. These, too, are harmful to concentration, the sign referred to as the acquired sign at the point of contact. When the meditator directs his attention to this acquired sign, his mind, being concerned also with the breathing, wavers or falters. Conversely, when he pays too much attention to the breathing, the mind, which ought to be fixed on the sign, wavers. The two obstacles arise because of disorderly practice through lack of understanding and anticipation. In the early stages of the practice these problems do not arise because the breathing itself is the sign. Later when they do arise, it is because the meditator is, in effect, trying to deal with two distinct objects of concentration at once. He is viewing the breathing from two different angles, seeing it as both breathing and sign, point of contact. While he should be paying attention to the breathing as breathing, he is distracted by breathing as sign, and likewise for the reverse case. This is just clumsy practice. If the meditator fixes his attention firmly on the breathing alone, regarding the breathing itself as the sign, this obstacle will not arise. This is how to deal with the problem in the stage where the breathing itself is the sign.
This is the obstacle with regard to the out-breath. The same kind of problem arises with regard to the in-breath. 9. Distraction by in-breath while watching the sign. 10. Distraction by sign while watching in-breath. The significance of this pair is as for the preceding one. We can, therefore, consider both pairs together. While the breathing is still being used as the sign, it should be regarded as such and not viewed from two different angles in the way described above. When the acquired sign arises, the meditator should take that very point, the point of contact, as the sign and not attempt to pay attention to the breathing as well. He should direct his attention exclusively to the sensation at that point. Once the counterpart sign has arisen, concentration on the breathing is to be put aside. While the mind is steadily directed to the mental image, the breathing continues rhythmically of its own accord. The mind is then fixed directly on the sign, and is no longer concerned with the breathing. All this can be summarized in these 3 points. 1. At the time of the preparatory sign, attention is being given to both breathing and sign in one, since the breathing is the sign. 2. At the time of the acquired sign, attention is paid to the point of contact. This automatically implies attention to the breathing, of which it is a byproduct. Attention is directed to the sign, the point of contact, rather than to the breathing. But since contact is manifest only when the breath passes the point, the meditator is in effect paying attention to both things in one. 3. Finally, at the time of the counterpart sign, attention is paid to the sign directly. The breathing is left unattended, it carries on smoothly of its own accord, there is no need to give even indirect attention to the breathing. These pairs of obstacles can be destroyed by applying the appropriate technique at each of these 3 steps, that is, signs. 11. Attention to outbreath disturbed by in-breath.
12. Attention to in-breath disturbed by out-breath. These 2 obstacles to concentration arise in the early stages. Here the meditator fails to fix his attention thoroughly on both in and out breath. He does not perceive the 2 breaths equally because of lack of understanding and excessive zeal. This pair resembles the first pair. The difference is that here the distraction is of a general nature. It concerns only observations of the breath and not thoughts. And worries about the breath also, since attention is not equally fixed, the wavering of the mind may be caused by something having nothing to do with the breathing. In either case, the meditator should steady his mind by finding and destroying the cause of the disturbance. 13. Distraction through running after the past. 14. Wavering through looking forward to the future. The past makes the mind distracted, the future makes it waver. How do these 2 differ? Distraction or agitation of mind is caused by running after all sorts of past objects. Wavering is caused by looking forward to one particular future object. The first step towards overcoming these 2 obstacles is to rid the mind of its unwholesome state. The next step is, in the case of running after the past, establish the mind afresh at the point of contact. In the case of looking forward to the future, bend the mind to the point of contact. To understand these obstacles, the meditator must clearly understand what is meant by establishing the mind afresh and bending the mind. If he has not yet earnestly established the mind, he should establish it afresh, earnestly. If he has tried to establish it but without success, he should try again. If he has not yet been able to discern where to establish it, he should repeatedly try to discern the spot, and, having discerned it, establish the mind afresh. This is what is meant as to bending the mind. If attention is being given to a wrong object, it should be diverted towards the right one.
The point of contact. The distracted mind has no fixed object. Even when running after past objects, it is not content to remain fixed on any particular one. On the other hand, the wavering mind delights in remaining fixed on one desirable future object. If the meditator knows well how to establish and bend the mind, he can rid himself of these 2 obstacles. Anyone who understands what is being said here must acknowledge it as a fact of psychology that the effect on the mind of past objects is different from that of future objects. It must not be assumed that these 2 types of mental object produce the same kind of effect. It is not only in name that they differ. Past objects depend for their manifestation on past perceptions, sana. Future objects depend on feeling and reflection, vedana, vitaka. Obviously then, their effects will differ, so a clear understanding of the nature of feeling and reflection is naturally a great asset in establishing and bending the mind as required. Now we come back to ridding the mind of its unwholesome state, the first step, to be taken before establishing and bending the mind. To rid the mind of its unwholesome state, 2 techniques are available, willpower and reasoning. First, the meditator should exercise his will to prevent the recurrence of past impressions, that is, memories. At the same time, he should direct his thoughts toward the sign or object of concentration. If that fails, if memories keep on recurring stubbornly, he should resort to wise consideration. He should consider wisely that both the past happening and the memory of it are things compounded, insubstantial things, not selves. Once the meditator succeeds seeing them in this way, he is able to rid his mind of its unwholesome state of running after past memories. The same principle applies in the case of looking forward to the future. the only difference being that here it is feeling and reflection that are to be taken into account.
Here feeling refers to fascination with regard to some anticipated event, and reflection refers to thought about that event. The meditator should consider wisely that both feeling and reflection are mere shadows, nebulous things. Like memories, they are compounded things, impermanent, unsatisfactory, and insubstantial. By considering feeling and reflection in this way, he can do away with them and so rid the mind of its unwholesome state of looking forward to the future. Thus the meditator frees his mind of distraction and wavering and establishes in it, or bends it to, the present object of concentration. These two obstacles may arise at any time. They are most likely to arise in the early steps of counting and connecting, concerned with the preparatory sign. They may also arise during contact, which is concerned with the acquired sign, but not if well beaten down at the stage of the preparatory sign. The meditator should realize also that all the preliminaries and impediments discussed in the beginning are concerned with these two obstacles. Here the importance of the so-called subsidiary meditation objects should be realized. Since they give these obstacles little chance to arise, they are conducive to success with the principal meditation object. 15. Indolence due to slackness. 16. Agitation due to overexertion. These two obstacles may arise at any time, but obviously not simultaneously, as can some of the other pairs. Slackness of mind is a condition in which the mind is spiritless or shrunken in spirit. Slackness of mind results in wrong practice, bad health, poor physique, and weak mental faculties, confidence, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and insight. Also included under slackness of mind are dullness, drowsiness, exhaustion, boredom, and all other mental states resulting in depression, including lack of genuine interest in the practice. Thus slackness of mind takes many forms.
To rid himself of this obstacle, the meditator is advised to uplift the mind and free it of indolence. The technique for uplifting the mind must be understood and practiced with the utmost care. The meditator must first clear away any outward, that is, physical, stumbling block, and then must turn inwards to stimulate the mind. For instance, if his body is not well, his food is not suitable, or any other of the beneficial things is lacking, then he must remedy the want before turning to the mind itself. To arouse the mind, the meditator must wisely stimulate and intensify the will or zeal, chanda, for developing mindfulness. There are many ways of doing this, and the meditator should choose the one suitable to himself. If he cannot make the choice himself, he should go to a good friend or to his teacher, who may be able to help him considerably. The meditator can stimulate his will or zeal by making some external object the center of his thoughts. He should think of some person in whom he has confidence, the Buddha, for instance, and recollect that person's qualities. Recollection of the qualities of the Buddha will generate in the meditator confidence and a sense of deep respect, and thus the necessary eagerness and willingness for further practice. Or the meditator should think of some person who is his idol and the embodiment of perseverance. He should think, he is a man, so am I. If he can practice, so can I. He should also reflect on his own personality, thinking, I am still subject to suffering, still involved in the cycle of samsara. The way I am practicing is the only way leading to the cessation of those conditions. There is no way other than this. The more he thinks on these lines, the more he realizes the importance of the practice of Dhamma. By thinking, both subjectively and objectively in this way, he can uplift his mind. And with the mind uplifted, the mental faculties are gradually strengthened and slackness and dullness destroyed.